The dust-laden winds whipped across the Colorado plains as Willa Kennedy stood alone on the rickety porch of her father's homestead. It was 1883, and the telegram in her trembling hands had just confirmed what her heart had feared for weeks. Her father was dead, killed by outlaws on his journey back from Denver. The bank was coming for the land, and at 22 years old, she had nowhere to turn. 3 days, she whispered to the vast emptiness stretching toward the horizon. 3 days before they take everything. Willa's honey blonde hair escaped its pins as she turned to survey the modest ranch her father had built from nothing. The small herd of cattle wouldn't fetch enough to clear the debts. The vegetables from her garden wouldn't feed her through winter. The homestead outside Durango, Colorado, that had once represented hope now stood as a monument to her desperation. Night fell quickly in the mountains, and Willa lit the oil lamp in the small cabin, casting flickering shadows against the log walls. She pulled out paper and began to write letters to distant relatives, to her father's friends, to anyone who might offer sanctuary. But deep down, she knew help wouldn't arrive in time. Dawn broke with the distant thunder of hoofbeats. Willa reached for her father's old rifle, loading it with practiced hands. She'd seen enough drifters and claimed jumpers to know caution was wisdom out here. A lone rider approached, his silhouette cutting a stark figure against the rising sun. Tall and broad-shouldered, he rode a magnificent black stallion with the confidence of a man who'd spent his life in the saddle. As he drew nearer, Willa's finger hovered over the trigger. That's close enough. She called out, her voice steadier than her nerves. The stranger reined his horse to a halt, raising his hands slowly. "I mean no harm, madam." His voice was deep, worn by wind and distance. "State your business." He removed his hat, revealing a face weathered by sun and hardship. Dark hair fell across a high forehead, and his eyes, piercing blue even from this distance, held a sorrow that matched her own. "Name's Isaac O'Malley. I'm looking for Samuel Kennedy." Willa's rifle dipped slightly. "My father's dead, buried 3 weeks past." The stranger Isaac closed his eyes briefly, his broad shoulders slumping. "I'm sorry to hear that. He was a good man. You knew him. Served with him during the war, saved my life at Gettysburg." He hesitated. "Mind if I water my horse? Been riding 2 days straight from Trinidad." Willa hesitated, then nodded toward the well. "Help yourself." While the stallion drank deeply, Isaac surveyed the ranch with a practiced eye. "You're Willa, then. Sam spoke of you often in his letters." "He never mentioned you," she replied, still keeping distance between them. A sad smile crossed Isaac's face. "That sounds like Sam. Never was one to talk much about the war." He replaced his hat. "I've come too late, it seems. If you were looking to collect a debt, you certainly have." Bitterness crept into her voice. "No, madam, I came to pay one." He reached into his saddlebag and withdrew a small leather pouch. "Your father loaned me money to start fresh after the war. I've been working cattle drives up north, finally saved enough to repay him." Willa stared at the pouch he extended toward her. Hope and suspicion warred within her. "There's $300 there," he said. "I owe your father my life. Least I could do was pay back what he gave me." She took the pouch, weighing it in her hand. "The bank's coming in 3 days. This might buy me time, but not enough." Isaac stood silent for a long moment. "How much do you need?" "500 more, at least. The drought hit us hard last year. Pa took loans." The cowboy looked at the small homestead, then back to Willa. His eyes held no pity, only understanding. "I've got 100 more I can spare, and these hands." He held them up strong, calloused. "I'm good with cattle, good with a hammer, too." "I can't pay you. Don't need payment, just a place to sleep and maybe a meal." Willa studied him, searching for deceit. "Why would you help a stranger? You're not a stranger. You're Sam Kennedy's daughter." He said it as if that explained everything. Suspicion still clouded her judgment, but desperation won out. "The barn has an empty stall. You can sleep there." "Much obliged." That night, Willa watched from the window as Isaac worked by lantern light, mending the corral fence that had been broken for months. His movements were efficient, practiced. She'd seen plenty of drifters in her time, men running from something or toward something. Isaac O'Malley seemed like neither. He moved with purpose, but without hurry. Morning came with the smell of coffee already brewing. Willa found Isaac in the barn, organizing her father's neglected tools. Bank won't take these, he said by way of greeting. Figure we should know what we're working with, she questioned. $400 won't save this place alone, but $400 and a good herd might. The herd isn't good. 20 head, half of them too old to fetch decent price. Isaac nodded. I passed 3 strays on my way here, unmarked. Law says they're free claim in these parts if they're not branded. Rustling is a hanging offense, Mr. O'Malley. Not rustling if they're unclaimed, Miss Kennedy, and I've got a friend in Durango who might buy a small herd for his new ranch, paying top dollar. For the first time in weeks, Willa felt a flicker of hope. You do that. For my father, Isaac's eyes held hers. For the promise I made him, and for you, if you'll let me help. They rode out that afternoon, Willa on her father's aging mare and Isaac on his stallion. True to his word, they found 5 stray cattle within the first day, herding them back to her corral. These need branding, Isaac said as they secured the gate. You have your father's iron. Willa nodded, leading him to the tool shed where the branding iron with the Kennedy mark a simple K with a horizontal line through it hung on the wall. Pa always said a brand was a man's legacy out here. He was right about that. Isaac hefted the iron. We'll heat this up tomorrow. Over the next 2 days, they worked from sunrise to well past sunset. Isaac rode farther each day, returning with more strays. By the 3rd morning, the day the banker was due, they had 15 new cattle in the corral. It's not enough, Willa said, despair creeping back into her voice as they ate a simple breakfast of cornbread and coffee. It might be, Isaac replied. Depends on how reasonable your banker is. Mr. Hargrove is many things. Reasonable isn't one of them. Isaac's mouth set in a hard line. Then we'll just have to convince him. The sound of an approaching wagon sent them both to the porch. A fancy black buggy pulled by 2 matched grays came up the dusty drive. The man who stepped down wore a tailored suit that seemed absurdly formal against the backdrop of the rugged mountains. Miss Kennedy, the banker called, not bothering to remove his hat. I trust you've made arrangements to vacate the property. Willa squared her shoulders. I have the money to pay the interest, Mr. Hargrove, and security for the rest. Hargrove's thin lips curved in what might have been a smile on another man. I'm afraid the full amount is due today, Miss Kennedy. The bank has been more than generous. The bank has been circling like a vulture, Isaac interrupted, stepping forward. Madam's offering to make good on her father's debts. That deserves consideration. Hargrove's cold eyes assessed Isaac from hat to boots. And you are, Isaac O'Malley, Miss Kennedy's partner. The word hung in the air between them. Willa glanced at Isaac, but his eyes remained fixed on the banker. Partnership doesn't change the terms of the loan, Hargrove sniffed. Perhaps this will. Isaac pulled a folded paper from his vest pocket. Letter from James Whitcomb at the Durango Cattle Company. He's agreed to purchase 20 head from us next month at $18 each. That's $360 plus the $400 we have today. Hargrove snatched the letter, reading it with narrowed eyes. Whitcomb is overextended himself. His money's good, Isaac countered. And you know it. A tense silence stretched between them. Finally, Hargrove folded the letter. $760 doesn't cover the $800 owed. The $40 can be paid with interest next month, Willa interjected. You'll have your money, Mr. Hargrove. The banker looked from Isaac to Willa, calculation evident in his gaze. Very well, but I want a formal contract drawn up and collateral. You already have the land as collateral, Willa argued. I want something more, immediate. The black stallion will do. Isaac stiffened beside her. Shadow's not for sale or trade. Then I'm afraid we don't have a deal. Hargrove turned toward his buggy. Wait, Isaac called. The saddle, hand-tooled, worth at least $50. You can hold it until we pay the balance. The banker considered this, then nodded. Bring the money and the saddle to my office by noon. I'll have the papers ready. After Hargrove departed, Willa turned to Isaac. Partner, a flush crept up his neck. Seemed the right thing to say. Bankers respect men with stakes in the game. And James Whitcomb, is he real? Isaac's slow grin transformed his face. Real as they come, met him on a cattle drive last year. He owes me a favor, but he hasn't agreed to buy our cattle. Not yet, but he will. Isaac's confidence was contagious. In Durango, they delivered the payment and saddle to Hargrove, then sought out James Whitcomb at the cattleman's saloon. The tall, silver-haired rancher greeted Isaac with a hearty handshake. O'Malley, didn't expect to see you this far south again. Isaac introduced Willa, then got straight to business. Need a favor, Jim. Need you to buy some cattle. Over whiskey coffee for Willa, Isaac laid out their situation. Whitcomb stroked his beard thoughtfully. Could use some breeding stock, that's true, but $18 a head is steep. 17 then, Isaac countered, but we deliver them to your north pasture. Whitcomb's eyes twinkled. You always were a hard bargainer, O'Malley. He extended his hand. You've got a deal. Outside, Willa could barely contain her excitement. We did it. The bank's satisfied, at least for now. For now, Isaac agreed, but we need to think longer term. Ranch that size needs at least 50 head to be profitable. Isaac hesitated. I mean you, of course, it's your ranch. Something in his expression made Willa pause. You said you were heading north. What changed? Nothing changed, he said softly. Just found a reason to stay a while longer. Over the next weeks, they fell into a routine. Isaac rode out daily, returning with strays when he could find them. Willa tended the vegetable garden and repaired the cabin's leaking roof. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson. Isaac shared stories of cattle drives and frontier towns. Willa told him about growing up as the only child of a widower who taught her to shoot and ride alongside more traditional skills. Pa always said I was more son than daughter sometimes, she admitted one evening. Your father was proud of you, Isaac said. Wrote about you in every letter, how you could outshoot any man in the county, how you kept the books better than any banker. You've never shown me these letters. Isaac looked away. Lost most of them in a fire 2 years back, kept one though. He reached into his shirt pocket and withdrew a folded, tattered paper. Willa recognized her father's slanted handwriting immediately. The letter was dated just 6 months ago. My Willa's turning 22 next month, she read aloud. Smart as a whip and twice as sharp. Reminds me of her mother more each day. Wish you could meet her, O'Malley. You two are cut from the same cloth, too stubborn for your own good, too loyal to walk away from trouble. Tears blurred her vision. He never told me he was writing to you all these years. Sam was a private man, but he valued friendship. Is that why you came? Friendship? Isaac stared into the gathering darkness. Partly, and a promise I made him during the war. Said if anything happened to him, I'd make sure his family was taken care of. I'm hardly a helpless child, Willa pointed out. Never thought you were. His voice held admiration. But everyone needs help sometimes, even stubborn Kennedy women. Their laughter mingled in the cool evening air, and something shifted between them, subtle as a change in the wind, but just as significant. The next morning, Isaac was gone before sunrise. Willa found a note nailed to the porch post. Gone to Durango, back by nightfall. True to his word, he returned as the sun dipped below the mountains, but he wasn't alone. Behind him rode 6 cowboys, each leading horses laden with supplies. What's all this? Willa asked as they dismounted. Help, Isaac replied simply. Friends from my driving days. They're between jobs and agreed to work cheap. One of the men stepped forward, removing his hat. Madam, name's Cooper. Isaac here says you need a bunkhouse built and some fencing done. Willa shot Isaac a questioning look. Winter's coming, he explained. Can't run a proper ranch without hands. And hands need somewhere to sleep. I can't afford to pay them, she whispered. Already handled. Consider it an investment in our partnership. What partnership is that exactly? Isaac looked uncharacteristically uncertain. The kind where I provide capital and labor, you provide land and leadership, profits split evenly. And if there are no profits, then we'll have tried our best. He gestured to the waiting men. They're good workers. With their help, we can have 50 head by spring, maybe more. Willa weighed her options. The truth was, she needed the help, and something about the way Isaac said our partnership sent a thrill through her that had nothing to do with cattle. All right, she agreed, but I want everything in writing, 50-50 split. Isaac's smile was answer enough. Construction began immediately. The men worked with the efficiency of a crew that had labored together before. Within days, the framework of a bunkhouse stood behind the barn. The corral was expanded, and new fencing stretched toward the eastern pasture. Willa found herself cooking for 7 hungry men, her days filled with a constant round of feeding, cleaning, and keeping accounts. Isaac worked alongside the others, but each evening he would join her on the porch, discussing the day's progress and plans for tomorrow. Cooper says the creek on the north side would make a good spot for a watering trough, he told her one night. Save the cattle having to go all the way to the river. My father always wanted to build one there, Willa mused. Never had the time or help. We've got both now. The simple phrase, "we've got," warmed her more than the coffee in her hands. October brought an early snowfall, blanketing the half-finished bunkhouse. The men moved into the barn, sleeping in the hayloft despite Willa's offer to let them use the cabin's main room. Wouldn't be proper, Cooper explained. Miss Kennedy needs her privacy. Isaac continued sleeping in the stall he'd claimed that first night, despite the increasing cold. Willa found herself listening for his movements in the darkness, wondering if he was warm enough with just his bedroll and saddle blanket. One particularly bitter night, she wrapped a quilt around her shoulders and crossed the yard to the barn. The structure blocked the worst of the wind, but still, the cold seeped through the wooden walls. Isaac was awake, sitting on a hay bale and cleaning his pistol by lantern light. He looked up, surprise evident on his face. Something wrong? He asked, standing quickly. No, Willa hesitated. Just thought you might need this. She held out the quilt. I'm fine, really. Don't be stubborn, Isaac. It's freezing tonight. He accepted the offering, their fingers brushing in the exchange. Thank you. Willa didn't move to leave. Instead, she sat on another bale, watching him reassemble his weapon with practiced hands. Why did you really come here? She asked suddenly. The truth this time. Isaac set the pistol aside. Your father wrote that he was worried, said men had threatened him over water rights. Asked if I could come check on things. When, his last letter, arrived about a month before I got here, Willa's heart raced. You think those men killed him? I don't know. The sheriff in Denver said it was road agents, random violence, but you don't believe that. Isaac met her gaze steadily. Your father wasn't careless, and he wasn't easily surprised. Willa stood, anger and grief surging within her. All this time you suspected something and said nothing. I didn't have proof, still don't. He rose to face her, but I've been asking questions in town. The Silver Creek Mining Company has been buying up water rights all through this valley. Your father refused to sell. Pa always said our water was worth more than gold. He was right. Without it, this land is worthless to ranchers, but to miners washing ore, it's everything. Willa paced the small space, so they killed him for refusing to sell. Maybe the company's man, Ellsworth, was in Denver the same time as your father. We need to tell the sheriff. Isaac shook his head. Sheriff Briggs drinks with Ellsworth every Saturday. Besides, we don't have proof. Then what do? We build this ranch, make it too successful, too visible to touch. His voice hardened, and we watch our backs. Willa stepped closer. Is that why you're sleeping out here, to guard the place? Partly, he admitted, and the other part. Isaac's eyes dropped to her lips, then quickly away. It wouldn't be right. Your father trusted me to help you, not to. It just wouldn't be right. Understanding dawned. Willa took another step, closing the distance between them. My father also said I had good judgment, Willa. His voice was a warning, but his eyes held longing. Isaac, she reached up, her hand resting lightly on his chest. I'm not offering because I'm grateful or because I'm scared. Why then? His voice was barely audible. Because I see you, all of you. The man who rides for miles to find stray cattle, who works from dawn till dusk without complaint, who keeps his promises. Isaac's hand covered hers. I'm not worthy of what you're offering. That's not for you to decide. She rose on tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. For a moment he remained still, then his arms encircled her, drawing her against him as he returned the kiss with restrained passion. When they parted, both were breathing heavily. Your reputation, he began, is my concern, not yours. She smiled up at him. And I'm not suggesting anything improper, just acknowledging what's growing between us. Isaac touched her cheek gently. There's things in my past, we all have pasts, Isaac. I care about our future. He searched her eyes. You sure about this, about me? I've never been more certain of anything. Their second kiss held promise and possibility, sealing something that had been building since that first day on her porch. November brought a brief thaw, allowing the men to finish the bunkhouse just before Thanksgiving. Willa prepared a feast, using precious flour and sugar for pies that the cowboys devoured with appreciative groans. Isaac presented her with a gift that evening, a new branding iron. "The Kennedy brand is fine," she protested. "Look closer," he urged. Willa examined the iron. Alongside the familiar K was a small O, the two letters intertwined. "O for O'Malley, if you'll have it." Isaac seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "The Kennedy O'Malley Ranch has a good sound to it. Are you proposing a business merger, Mr. O'Malley?" she teased. "I'm proposing something more permanent." He took her hand. "I know it's fast. No, I don't have much to offer except these hands and a promise to work every day to make you happy." Joy bubbled up inside her. "When?" Isaac blinked in surprise. "When what?" "When are we getting married?" Willa clarified, her smile widening at his stunned expression. "You'll have me then?" "I will. Though I expect a proper proposal, on one knee and everything, when we're not standing in a barn surrounded by curious cowboys." Isaac laughed, the sound echoing in the rafters. "Yes, madam." "First thing tomorrow." True to his word, Isaac proposed formally the next morning, kneeling in the frost-covered yard with a simple gold band that had belonged to his mother. The ranch hands cheered from the bunkhouse porch as Willa accepted, tears glistening in her eyes. They were married 2 weeks later in Durango's small church, with James Whitcomb standing as Isaac's best man and Cooper giving away the bride. Willa wore her mother's dress, carefully altered to fit her taller frame. Isaac wore a new shirt and the cleanest pair of trousers he owned. The simple ceremony was followed by a celebration at the Cattleman's Saloon, where the piano player pounded out dance tunes until midnight. Isaac proved to be a surprisingly graceful dancer, guiding Willa through waltzes with confidence. "Where did a cowboy learn to dance like this?" she asked, breathless after a particularly lively reel. "My mother insisted all her sons learn." His eyes crinkled with the memory. "Said a man who could dance would never lack for female company. Your mother was a wise woman." Willa rested her head against his chest as the music slowed. "I wish I could have met her. She would have loved you." Isaac's arms tightened around her. Strong women recognize each other. As midnight approached, James Whitcomb announced a wedding gift, a team of matched draft horses for the ranch. "Can't run cattle properly without good horseflesh," he declared, raising his glass in a toast. The couple left amid cheers and well wishes, spending their wedding night in Durango's finest hotel, another gift, this one from Cooper and the ranch hands. In the privacy of their room, their newfound intimacy was tender and passionate. Isaac's reverence for Willa was matched by her eager exploration of this final frontier between them. They discovered each other slowly, learning the language of touch and whisper that would bind them through the years to come. Dawn found them still wrapped in each other's arms, reluctant to leave their sanctuary. But the ranch called, and duty was something neither could ignore for long. The journey home took them past the Silver Creek Mining Company's new office, a garish 2-story building that seemed to glare at them as they rode past. "Ellsworth's back from Denver," Isaac noted, nodding toward a black buggy parked outside. As if summoned by the mention of his name, a portly man in an expensive suit emerged from the building. He paused when he saw them, then approached with an oily smile. "Mrs. O'Malley, I presume?" He tipped his hat. "Wallace Ellsworth at your service." "Please accept my congratulations on your nuptials, Mr. Ellsworth." Willa's tone was cool. "I understand you've been expanding operations at your ranch, very ambitious." Isaac shifted in his saddle, "Just building what Samuel Kennedy started." "Ah, yes, poor Samuel." Ellsworth's expression conveyed nothing resembling genuine sympathy. "Such a tragedy. Road agents are a terrible plague in these parts. Funny how they only seemed interested in my father and not his money," Willa observed. Ellsworth's smile tightened. "Fortune is fickle, Mrs. O'Malley." "Speaking of which," he pulled an envelope from his coat. "I'd like to make you an offer for your water rights, a generous one in consideration of your recent marriage." Willa didn't even glance at the envelope. "Not interested, Mr. Ellsworth, not now, not ever. I urge you to reconsider. Development is coming whether you welcome it or not. Silver Creek Mining can be a friend or—" He let the implication hang. "Or what?" Isaac's voice was dangerously soft. Ellsworth stepped back. "Or nothing, of course, just a figure of speech." He tucked the envelope away. "The offer remains open." "Good day to you both." As they rode away, Willa could feel the man's eyes boring into her back. He as good as admitted he had Pa killed, but said nothing we could take to a judge, Isaac pointed out. We need to be careful, Willa. These people don't play by frontier rules. Neither do we, she replied grimly. Not anymore. Back at the ranch, they found Cooper and the men had decorated the cabin with pine boughs and ribbon a wedding surprise that brought tears to Willa's eyes. It's beautiful, she told them. Thank you. That evening, as they settled into what was now their shared bedroom, Isaac unfolded a map across the table. Been thinking about our water situation, he said. The creek that runs through our property feeds into 3 others before joining Silver Creek here. He pointed to a junction 5 miles east. If we dam our creek, we control the water to the whole eastern valley, Willa finished, seeing his strategy. Exactly, it would be leverage against Ellsworth and insurance for us. Willa studied the map. Pa always said water was power out here. Your pa was right about most things. Isaac rolled up the map. We'll start construction after the new year. The winter months passed in a blur of work and discovery. Willa and Isaac settled into married life with surprising ease, finding rhythm in their days and comfort in their nights. The bunkhouse stood finished, housing Cooper and 4 permanent hands. The herd grew to 30 head with 10 pregnant cows promising spring calves. February brought heavy snow and isolation. For 2 weeks, no one could reach town and the ranch became a world unto itself. Isaac taught Willa to play chess using a set he carved from pine. She taught him her mother's recipes for bread and stew. They shared stories of their childhood's Isaacs in a crowded Boston tenement with 5 brothers. Willa's on the frontier with a father who treated her as both son and daughter. They spoke of dreams, his to build something that would last, hers to continue her father's legacy while creating something new. In the intimacy of their bed, they explored each other with increasing boldness, their passion tempered by tenderness, their desire by deep respect. When the thaw finally came in early March, Isaac rode into Durango for supplies and news. He returned with both and a grave expression. Ellsworth's brought in hired guns, he told Willa as they unloaded the wagon. 3 men with Pinkerton backgrounds but questionable reputations. Pinkertons. Here, former Pinkertons, Isaac clarified. Men who got pushed out for being too brutal. Word is they're staying at the hotel but spending their days riding the countryside, surveying they call it. Surveying our water, Willa concluded, most likely. Jim Whitcomb says they've been asking questions about us in town, about our herd size, our hands, our defenses. That night, Isaac checked and rechecked his rifle before coming to bed. Willa noticed but said nothing. Some fears were better left unspoken. Construction on the dam began the following week. Cooper and the hands worked tirelessly, hauling stone from the eastern ridge. Isaac designed the structure based on similar projects he'd seen in California, simple but effective. Ellsworth's men made their first appearance 3 days into construction, 3 riders watching from the ridge above the creek, making no effort to conceal themselves. Isaac rode up to meet them, his rifle across his saddle. "This is private property," he called as he approached. The leader, a tall man with a pockmarked face, smiled without humor. "Public waterway. Not according to Colorado territorial law. Creek runs through Kennedy O'Malley land, which makes it ours to manage. Manage, maybe dam up completely?" The man spat tobacco juice onto the ground. "That might cause problems for folks downstream. Nothing in the law against improving our water management," Isaac replied evenly. The man's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Ellsworth wants to speak with you and the missus. Proper business meeting. Town's more civilized for such things." "Mr. Ellsworth knows where to find us if he has business to discuss. He's a busy man. So am I." Isaac's hand rested casually near his holster. "Now, unless you've got actual business here, I suggest you move along." The 3 men exchanged glances, then wheeled their horses around. "We'll be seeing you," the leader called over his shoulder. That night, Isaac doubled the watch. Cooper and another hand took first shift, patrolling the property's boundaries. "They'll be back," Willa said as they lay in bed, listening to the wind howl outside. "Yes, but not tonight. Too cold, too dark." "Do you think they killed my father?" Isaac rolled to face her. "I think Ellsworth gave the order. These men, they're just hired muscle. What do we do if they come in force? We're ready." He pulled her closer. Cooper and the boys are loyal. We've got good positions, good sight lines. I don't want anyone else dying for this land. No one will, he promised, but we won't be driven off either. The next day brought unexpected visitors, Sheriff Briggs and his deputy riding up to the dam construction site where Isaac was working. Complaint's been filed, Briggs announced without preamble. Silver Creek Mining says you're illegally diverting water. Isaac straightened, wiping mud from his hands. Nothing illegal about what we're doing, Sheriff, improving our irrigation system. Briggs dismounted, surveying the half-built structure. Looks more substantial than irrigation to me, O'Malley. Law says a landowner can make improvements that benefit their property. Law also says you can't deprive others of necessary resources. Dam will have a controlled release, Isaac explained, pointing to the design. Downstream flow will be regulated, not stopped, the sheriff grunted. Ellsworth has lawyers, O'Malley, expensive ones from Denver. Let them come. We're within our rights. Briggs studied Isaac for a long moment. You're making powerful enemies. Wasn't my choice. Never is. The sheriff remounted his horse. Consider this a friendly warning. Ellsworth isn't known for taking no for an answer. After they'd gone, Cooper approached Isaac. Trouble, nothing unexpected. Isaac stared at the retreating figures. But post an extra man on watch tonight. The confrontation Willa had been dreading came 3 days later. She was alone in the cabin, kneading bread dough while Isaac and the hands worked on the dam. The sound of approaching horses drew her to the window. Ellsworth sat atop a fine bay gelding flanked by his 3 hired men. Behind them rode another dozen miners armed with rifles. Willa grabbed her shotgun and stepped onto the porch. That's far enough, Mr. Ellsworth. The mining executive reined in his horse. Mrs. O'Malley. I've come to discuss business. Surrounded by armed men, that's not business, that's intimidation. Ellsworth spread his hands. Merely precautionary, these are dangerous times. State your business and be gone. My husband and our hands will be returning soon. That's precisely why I came now, my dear. Women are often more reasonable than their husbands. His smile made her skin crawl. I've brought a new offer. $5,000 for your water rights, a fortune by any measure. Willa's grip tightened on her shotgun. Not interested. $10,000 then? Enough to buy a fine house in Denver. Start fresh. This is our home, Mr. Ellsworth. It's not for sale. The man's facade of civility slipped. Your father made the same foolish choice. Consider how that ended for him. White-hot rage swept through Willa. Are you confessing to murder, Mr. Ellsworth? He laughed, the sound hollow in the mountain air. Merely observing that stubbornness can have unfortunate consequences in this territory. So can threatening a woman on her own property. Willa raised the shotgun. Now get off my land before I decide my aim needs practice. Ellsworth's face darkened. This isn't over, Mrs. O'Malley. It is for today. The mining executive wheeled his horse around, gesturing for his men to follow. As they rode away, Willa's hands began to shake. She lowered the shotgun, her breath coming in quick gasps. She was still standing there when Isaac and the hands rode in 20 minutes later, alerted by the dust cloud of Ellsworth's departing party. What happened? Isaac demanded, leaping from his horse. Willa told him everything, including Ellsworth's thinly veiled confession about her father. That's it, Isaac decided. We're not waiting for them to come back. Cooper, he called to the foreman, gather the men, we're fortifying the ranch tonight. By sundown, the main house and bunkhouse had been transformed into defensible positions. Furniture was moved to block windows, leaving just enough space for rifle barrels. The barn doors were reinforced with additional timbers. A watch rotation was established, 2 men at all times, positioned at opposite corners of the property. Isaac checked and rechecked their ammunition supplies. We have enough to hold them off, he told Willa, but we need to get word to Durango to people who'll stand with us. I'll go, she offered. They're watching for you, not me. No, his refusal was immediate. Too dangerous. Isaac, I can ride as well as any man, better than most, and I know the back trails. It's not about your riding, he took her hands. Ellsworth knows you're my weakness. If they caught you, understanding dawned, you think they'd use me to force your surrender. I know they would, and I know I'd give them anything they asked if it meant keeping you safe. Willa squeezed his hands. Then we stand together, here, Together, he agreed. They spent a tense night, taking turns sleeping while the other kept watch. Dawn came without incident, and as the sun climbed higher, hope began to rise that perhaps Ellsworth was reconsidering his approach. That hope died at noon. "Riders coming," Cooper shouted from his post. "At least 20 coming fast from the east," Isaac grabbed his rifle. "Positions, everyone, Willa, stay in the house." "I'm a better shot than half your men," she protested. "Which is why I need you guarding our home," he countered. "Anyone gets past us outside, they'll come for the house next." Reluctantly, she nodded, taking up position at the front window while Isaac joined Cooper and the others in the barn and corral, which faced the approaching riders. The attackers came in a cloud of dust, splitting into two groups as they neared the ranch. One headed for the bunkhouse, the other for the barn where Isaac and Cooper waited. The first shots rang out warning fire over the riders' heads from Isaac's men. The attackers returned fire immediately, bullets splintering wood around the defenders. Willa watched in horror as the battle unfolded. The hired guns were professionals, using the terrain for cover as they advanced. Two of Isaac's men were hit in the initial exchange, though neither fatally. The firefight intensified. Smoke drifted across the yard as both sides exchanged volleys. Through the haze, Willa saw Isaac darting between positions, directing his men with calm authority despite the danger. A movement to her right caught her attention, 3 men breaking from the main group, circling toward the house from the blind side. Willa shifted her position, sighting down her shotgun as the first man reached the corner of the porch. She fired, the blast catching him in the shoulder and sending him sprawling. The other 2 dove for cover, returning fire that shattered the window beside her. Willa ducked, glass raining around her, then rose to fire her second barrel. One man cried out, clutching his leg, reloading quickly. She prepared for the third attacker, but he had retreated to safer ground. The battle continued for what seemed like hours but was likely less than 30 minutes. Gradually, the attackers' fire lessened. Willa could see several men lying motionless on the ground while others dragged wounded comrades to safety. Then, remarkably, the sound of a bugle cut through the gunfire. Both sides paused, turning toward the western ridge where a line of blue uniforms appeared, cavalry soldiers, at least a dozen, led by an officer with a drawn sword. "Cease fire," the officer commanded, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "By order of the United States Army." The attackers hesitated, then lowered their weapons. From the barn, Isaac emerged cautiously, rifle still ready. The officer rode down to the ranch yard, flanked by 4 troopers. "Lieutenant Thomas Blackford, 7th Cavalry," he announced. "Who's in charge here?" "I am." Isaac stepped forward. "Isaac O'Malley, this is my ranch." "And those men," Blackford gestured to the retreating attackers, "hired by Wallace Ellsworth of Silver Creek Mining, they attacked us without provocation." The lieutenant nodded. "We've heard similar complaints from other ranchers. The territorial governor has ordered an investigation into Silver Creek's business practices." "Investigation?" Willa joined Isaac, her shotgun lowered but still in her hands. "They murdered my father, tried to murder us." "I understand your anger, madam, but we must follow proper procedure." Blackford turned to his sergeant. "Detain any wounded attackers for questioning. The rest will pursue once we've secured this scene." As the soldiers spread out, tending to the wounded and gathering evidence, Isaac put his arm around Willa's shoulders. How did they know to come? She wondered aloud. Jim Whitcomb, Isaac guessed. He must have heard about Ellsworth's men in town and sent word to Fort Lewis. "Remind me to thank him properly," Willa said, finally letting the tension drain from her body. The Army established a temporary camp on the ranch, using it as a base while they investigated the attack and pursued the fleeing gunmen. Within 2 days, they had captured most of Ellsworth's hired men, including the pockmarked leader who turned state's evidence in exchange for leniency. His testimony implicated Ellsworth not only in the attack on the ranch, but also in the murder of Samuel Kennedy. A telegraph from Denver confirmed that Ellsworth had been seen arguing with Kennedy at their hotel the night before the rancher was killed. By week's end, Ellsworth himself was in custody, his fine suit exchanged for prison garb as he awaited trial in Durango's jail. Lieutenant Blackford visited the ranch before departing with his men. The territorial prosecutor believes he has enough evidence to convict Ellsworth of conspiracy to commit murder, he informed them. Justice will be served for your father, Mrs. O'Malley. Thank you, Lieutenant, Willa said sincerely, for everything. Just doing my duty, madam. He tipped his hat. The Army will maintain patrols in this area for the next few months, just to ensure there's no further trouble from Silver Creek's remaining associates. After the soldiers left, the ranch gradually returned to normal. The damaged buildings were repaired. The wounded men recovered. The dam was completed, providing reliable water for the expanding herd. By summer, the Kennedy O'Malley Ranch was flourishing. 50 head of cattle grazed in the eastern pasture. Fields of wheat and corn grew in the irrigated lowlands. The vegetable garden doubled in size under Willa's careful management. In July, as they sat on their porch watching a spectacular sunset, Isaac handed Willa a small wooden box. "What's this?" she asked, opening it to find a delicate gold locket, "something I've been saving for." He helped her fasten it around her neck. "Open it." Inside was a tiny portrait of her father, painted from a photograph Isaac had carried with him. On the opposite side was space for another image. "For our child," Isaac explained, his hand moving to rest gently on Willa's slightly rounded belly. "So they'll know where they come from, both sides of their heritage." Willa covered his hand with hers. "Our child will have a legacy to be proud of." They'd confirmed her pregnancy the previous month, their joy tempered only by the wish that Samuel Kennedy could have lived to see his grandchild. "He would have been so happy," Willa had said when they first realized the news. "He is," Isaac had replied with certainty. "Wherever he is, he knows." Now, as the sun's final rays painted the mountains in gold and shadow, Willa leaned against her husband's shoulder. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked. "When you rode up that first day," Isaac chuckled, "not in my wildest dreams. I came to fulfill a promise, found a future instead." "A future you gave me when you gave me your name," Willa mused, "and you gave me back everything I'd lost," he countered, pulling her closer. "Home. Family, purpose, hope," she added softly. "We both found that again." As darkness settled around them, the first stars appeared in the velvet sky. From the bunkhouse came the sound of a harmonica, its sweet notes drifting on the evening breeze. The cattle lowed softly in their pasture. The creek burbled its constant rhythm. "Listen," Isaac whispered. "That's the sound of something that will last." Willa smiled, content in the knowledge that what they'd built together, both the ranch and their love, would endure long after they were gone, a legacy for generations yet unborn. 5 years later, the Kennedy O'Malley Ranch had become one of the most successful operations in Colorado Territory. Their herd numbered over 200 head. Their reputation for fair dealings and quality stock spread throughout the region. Isaac and Willa now had 2 children: Samuel, a sturdy 4-year-old with his grandfather's eyes, and Elizabeth, a spirited 2-year-old who already showed her mother's determination. The anniversary of their wedding found them hosting a gathering for friends and neighbors. James Whitcomb, now a prominent citizen of Durango, raised his glass in a toast. "To Isaac and Willa," he proclaimed, "who proved that with courage, hard work, and love, anything is possible in this wild country of ours." As the celebration continued around them, Isaac drew Willa away for a moment of privacy beneath the old cottonwood tree that marked the ranch's southern boundary. "Happy?" he asked, though he knew the answer. "Completely," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "You." "More than I ever thought possible," he kissed her gently. "You know, your father once wrote to me that happiness wasn't found in gold or glory, but in building something that matters with people who matter." "He was right," Willa said, watching their children playing with Cooper's new puppy near the corral. "As usual, smart man, your father, smart enough to lead you to me," Isaac smiled, "or me to you." Together, they walked back toward the celebration, toward their future, hand in hand as always partners in all things, bound by a love forged in adversity and strengthened by shared dreams. The sun set on the Kennedy O'Malley Ranch, gilding the land they'd fought for, the home they'd built, the legacy they'd continue. And in that golden light, they found the greatest treasure the West could offer, not in its mines or claims, but in each other's hearts.